welcome to another episode. My name is Dean Vasic. You can find me on X at #Kangas, Instagram #Kangaroos Podcast. Tonight, I welcome back a very special guest, someone from my rival podcast field, further north, Josh Neal. Unfortunately, we couldn't get the other couple of guys on, Jason Hunt, as he's still working things out with his newborn, trying to get time to find for that. And Bailey Tyson, I think he's on his deathbed. Josh, is that what you've heard?
Look, that's the rumour going around, Dean, but like we've seen, even in the football, when some people go down, people have to step up. You know, Paul Curtis out for 3 weeks and Zurhaar has stepped up. So consider me the Cam Zurhaar of this podcast right now.
No, that sounds good. We need someone to carry it.
Or the Toby Pink as well, to be fair, instead of Griffin Logue. Maybe I'll be Toby Pink. We both got red hair.
Well, he's played a good role just on Toby Pink. He's come in and done a good job, so you can't complain about that. So I'd be happy with that sort of performance, Josh, if you're going to put that in.
You can trust me, Dean. Trust me. I'm watching a lot of Toby Pink. I'm his biggest fan. And if there's one man I'm going to emulate right now, it's Toby Pink. So don't you worry about a thing.
Oh, that sounds good, mate. I'm looking forward to seeing a few spoils and a few intercept marks, much-saving intercept marks, I should say that. So we're 11 rounds into the season, Josh. Only a couple wins, a draw, a few competitive performances, a couple of close losses. Is it what you expected so far this year?
It is, to be honest, and that was because I was a bit of a pessimist at the start of the year. I think, obviously we're in the world of North Melbourne, Dean. We consume what a lot of the fan base is feeling, and at the start of the year, I definitely felt like I was the pessimist. I've always been of the belief that this is going to be a very long process, and we're sort of looking at a Demons, a Richmond, a Brisbane type build instead of a Hawthorn or, other teams that have dropped down for a year or two and then just gone straight back up. So look, the way I try and look at it is we were 0-11 at this time last year. We've got some wins in the first half of the year. The defensive performances are much better, and we nearly knocked off the Lions. And I know we can't celebrate it like a win, but is 1 point really the difference between us being positive and negative over that? That's such a small margin, and we were right there. So look, it's probably where I thought we would be, even though as a fan, I still want more, and anyone who thinks there should be more, I think he's completely entitled as well.
No, definitely. And that's what we're certainly hoping for in the second half of the year. What's been a big positive for you so far in the first half of the year?
I think the defense is the thing for me, because the first 4 or 5 weeks, I think they said we were averaging about 117 odd points against, which is way too many points. And then after that Carlton game, we tightened it up. And over the next month or so, we're down to about, it's probably under 80 now after that Collingwood win. It was about 75, 76 points. So that's, when you think about it, a 40 odd point turnaround in defensive or scores given up, I think that is huge. That's a massive improvement. So, that's probably the biggest thing for me. We couldn't defend a lamppost last year, and it was more us trying to outscore the opposition. That is definitely the positive for me, especially in an area in the back line that we don't have maybe the top line personnel in. I think the system is slowly coming together, and with Hardiman's performance, Comben, my man Toby Pink, when Archer comes back, I think we're really starting to build something down there. The only other one I can sort of think of is, and it's a slight negative along with something that's a positive, LDU and Sheasel aren't firing, and we're still competitive. So I think the floor has risen at North Melbourne. The ceiling might not have risen, but our floor has risen. We're not going to put in ridiculously bad Carlton-esque performances. Yes, we've had one like that this year. For me personally, I think the Sydney and the Carlton game are probably the only two I'm flat out just disgusted with. Other than that, I know Collingwood blew out, but overall I think that was and this is a controversial one, but I think it was a good performance up against from where we are on the ladder to them over the 3 quarters. I'm taking the positives from that. The Gold Coast would be the same from where they're at this year. I think we've only had 2 really bad performances compared to this time last year, where you could probably say 70% of them were pretty rubbish. So look, I think we're playing decent enough without LDU and Shees firing, and our defense isn't just leaking goals all over the place.
It could be a case of improving the team defence as well. That probably starts in the forward half. But, the back 7 is starting to settle down, because from round 1 to where we are now, it's a complete different back 7, isn't it, really?
Yeah, totally. I mean, if we thought Toby Pink would be basically undroppable, if you told me that before the season, Dean, I would have said, "What are we doing down there? Surely Griffin Logue is going to be the guy," and all that sort of stuff. So, yeah, look, we've had to mix it up, but that's why Clarkson is here. And a lot of people and media, outside fan bases talk about how long does he need. Well, in my opinion, and I guess it's a fact, he's 18 months into his coaching journey with us. If you take out that first year, which you can't really count because he wasn't at the club. So I don't know any coach ever who can come in with 18 months, turn the list around with how bad our list was, turn that list around. He's drafted really well since Clarkson's come in. The place culturally has changed. We've only lost Mackay. Other than that, we haven't lost much. So I think the pieces are in place and we're building, and I think we can have a good back half of the season.
Certainly hoping so anyway. So, and we might as well go to the negatives. I mean, besides the Carlton and Sydney game, anything else that's you probably haven't enjoyed as much in the first half of the year?
Going back to the last point, it's probably your LDUs and your Sheezels. I mean, I don't think LDU's playing as bad as the criticism. He's impact-wise on the eye test, he's down, but in some of the numbers, his contested ball is at career highs, which contested ball is never flashy compared to what he was doing last year, which is more flashy, but he wouldn't do much contested-wise. So, look, I think maybe Harry Sheezel. I love Harry, and I know he's going to come back and be top 10 in the comp in a few years and all that sort of stuff, but it would have been great to see him sort of kick on and take another step. We were comparing him to Dacos last year, and then this year he's honestly just nowhere near that. So probably Harry Sheezel. Other than that, just the gross suspensions of Jackson Archer and Paul Curtis. I think that's just ridiculous, and you can sort of see with a lot of the tackles and things going on in the last 2 or 3 weeks that players aren't getting suspended because of that. So in one side of that, it's good that it feels like the suspensions aren't happening like what Paul Curtis got, but it sucks that it was our guy and our best player this season had to be the one to change the rule, I guess. So that's probably another negative, but you can spin it as a positive because hopefully, like Alex Pearce getting off, and there's lots of other players who have done things like that. They don't seem to be getting off, which I think is a good thing for the future, but as a North fan, it pisses me off.
No, look, I mean, there are things that were out of our control, but I mean, you probably have to think if Paul Curtis plays in those 3 games, we probably would have won one of them.
Definitely the Bombers one.
And probably would have beaten Brisbane, to be honest with you. So, and who knows against Port? You know, I mean, we're only eight points short or something like that.
Nine. So. No, I think it was 9. Yeah, 9 points, 3 points to the Bombers and a draw with Brisbane. I mean, he was at that point one of the only 2 players in the league to kick 2 or more goals every game, and those games were all under 2 goals. So, look, I know that's not as simple as that, but you know, one extra win for us with where we are on the ladder in the last 5-6 years is so crucial. So. Yeah, that's why I'm kind of thinking I'm not trying to be too negative on the first half of the year. Like I said, we're 0-11 this time last year, and we nearly knocked off the reigning premiers and only had 2 games where I really believe we were shocking. So it's a big improvement. It's a low bar. Let me just caveat that, but it is an improvement and it's steps. I've always said, and you let me know if you agree with this, Dean. I mean, you might be different. I'm not too fussed if we don't make finals in the next 3 to 5 years or so. I think it's going to be that sort of time frame that we make finals. But if we don't play finals in the 2020s and then win a flag in the 2030s, I'm not going to care that we were bad through the 2020s. I mean, no Richmond fan even thinks of Brett Deledio anymore. You know what I mean? And all that
for
sort
30
of
years they won nothing.
Yeah, well, there you go. Exactly. Yeah. And that is, I know some fans, I said, I don't think we make finals for 3 years, and people in my comment section were getting upset at that. And I just think that's the reality of the situation. And I think because I've accepted that, and I feel like I understand exactly where the list is at, my expectation in the near future is just to make steps. It's not to jump up into the finals like a Hawthorn. If one more person tells me it's going to go quick, it's going to jump quick, I will lose my head, because it's not. It's not what happens to North Melbourne, unfortunately. It's going to be a slow build, but let's hope when we get there, it's amazing and we set ourselves up for some sustained competitiveness.
Yeah, I mean, the tide is slowly turning. There's no doubt about that. But we're still, at least 2 years away, you'd have to think. I mean, I'm happy to wait, like yourself, till the 2030s if we're going to get one flag, because it'll all be worth it to go through the pain and to see players like Sheezel, Larkey, LDU and all that get a premiership. it'll definitely be worth it. And we won't even be thinking about, like you said, the 2020s when we were so poor. For the last 5 years, what did we won? 17 of our last 118 games. So
it's something crazy like that. I mean, the quote I sort of sum this up with is, we're not rebuilding a list, we're rebuilding a club. And that's why it's going to take longer for us than it does to other teams that drop for a few years and then come back up. And, you know, the club was on its knees, you know what I mean? It's been that, even in my lifetime, we've nearly been relocated twice, and not many clubs can say that, or no clubs can really say that anymore. So, you know, it's going to be a long process. And I always try and say to the North fans out there who maybe share the opinion or don't, just bunker in. It's going to be worth it, but don't expect fireworks over the next couple of years. But when the fireworks go off, it might be the best firework display you've ever seen in your life. So, yeah, that's my mentality on it anyway.
It can turn quick, Josh.
Don't say that, Dean. I'll lose my head. I'll get suspended for 3 weeks if I say something.
Well, who knows? Laura Kane, or was it Greg Swan?
She's listening.
The Greg Swan is coming to the AFL now. So,
she got her job role halved, I think, from the rubbish that she's been dishing up. So,
she should. Yeah,
absolutely.
But,
she's got half a job left.
Yeah. Well, if I did it as bad as her, I wouldn't have a job. To be honest,
I wouldn't have a job either, mate. We've said that heaps, haven't we?
Yeah, we have. But we'll move forward. One of the biggest disappointments for me, biggest negative as far as player personnel this year has been Bailey Scott, Josh. Back-to-back top three in the best and fairest. And this year, he looks like a player that doesn't even know how to play AFL football anymore. His possessions have halved. He's been subbing a couple of games. And, even his form in the reserves hasn't been great. Has he been, pretty disappointing for you?
Yeah, probably the most disappointing player. I think of him, or maybe a Griffin Logue, are probably the two most disappointing on the list. And I think at the start of the year, we would have all said those two, and especially Bailey Scott, are locks in the 23. For Bailey Scott, I don't know. I don't know if I've seen maybe a drop-off so severe from one year to another. I mean, he was undroppable last year, early to mid-20 possessions a game, just a lock on that wing. And it's the non-competitiveness in his game. He can kick okay. He can run all day, but there's no point running if you can't get around the ball and do anything with the football. And, we were sitting behind the goals for that Richmond game, and there was a couple of contests he needed to go in and at least bring the ball to a stoppage, and he just got bullied by a teenager. He got bumped off the ball and let the play get open. He can't lay a tackle. And then when you look at a guy, and I know he's been a favorite of mine, I guess, is Dylan Stephens. But you look at like a Dylan Stephens who I would say has stepped up in his physicality this year, and it will put his body on the line more compared to a Bailey Scott where he's completely lost that ability. So I don't know if Dylan Stephens had some of the secret stuff from Space Jam and took Bailey Scott's talent, but something's happened to him, mate. That's about the most logical explanation I can give you.
Well, that probably makes sense in a weird way, to be honest with you. Look, there was a big 50-50 moment with Dylan Stephens out on a wing against Collingwood in his last game, where he put his head over the ball and really went hard and got a free kick. A month ago against Carlton or whatever it was, he probably didn't do that, or he wasn't doing that. So it's a big career-defining moment. He's been fantastic. He's averaging 22 disposals per game for the last 4 weeks. Problem is, everyone remembers that kick he did to the wing when there was no one. But you got to remember, 5 seconds ago, he did a great tackle.
Well, that's right. I mean, look, it's better to kick it to nobody than kick it to the opposition, Dean. That's what I'm going to try and say. Look, I don't know what was happening there, to be honest. I mean, look, I think there's certain players we love and we hate. And, some other players will do things like that and we'll be like, oh, come on, mate. But then he'll do it and we'll go, oh, he sucks. He's rubbish. And it's a bit of preconceived notion. Look, I know I've liked him since day one, to be honest. I actually thought his year last year wasn't good. I'm not going to pretend that it was good, but I don't think it was quite as bad as everybody thought it was. I always said when he's got the ball, I think he's really good and he uses it so cleanly and makes the right decision most of the time. But his problem was he couldn't get the ball. And what I saw was us on half back, it's either Luke McDonald or Zach Fisher bombing it as far as they can to Javen Stevenson one-on-one on half forward. and Dylan Stephens is standing there just watching it going over his head. Yeah. But now we've actually got a little bit of transition. Daniel being back there, Hardiman coming through, and Finn O'Sullivan back there, even Sheasel. we've got ball users that can progress it up the field. And the thing he's been doing really well is getting the ball from those half backs and driving us forward instead of just getting it booted over his head. And look, there was plenty of times he wasn't good enough. I'm not trying to suggest he was a great player last year, but it doesn't surprise me that he looks better. I don't think he's doing anything different than what he was doing last year, except for the physicality stuff. I just think our team is more equipped to get him the football so he can do what he does. And maybe that's the thing where Bailey Scott is suffering from, because, why has there been such a switch in those two players who play the same position? Bailey Scott was potentially better at being around the stoppage when we used to bomb it out of the 50 all the time and just get it to ground, create a contest. He was always there to run past, but now we're moving the ball smoother. His work rate maybe isn't as much as a Stevens or a McKercher or someone else on the wing, and maybe he's not picking up the ball. I don't know. You tell me what you think, because I'm just trying to hypothesize why those two players have sort of switched in what they've been doing, to be honest.
No, you're exactly right. They're exactly the opposite of what they probably were 12 months ago. So different. Like Dylan Stevens has proven to be a good third or fourth link in the chain of ball movement. And look, last year was a very different team in that first half of the year. I mean, he was getting a lot of possessions in the back pocket, looking up, and there's no one there. He had to bomb it long a lot to 1-on-3s, like you said, to Jaden Stevenson. We're getting 30 inside 50s per game. So, it was a very different team. But he's found his confidence. You can sort of see why he was a top 10 draft pick, back all those years. There's a lot of quality there. He's got a little bit of pace, and his skills are generally pretty good. They are improving each week. So it was probably just a question of not committing his body when he needs to go a lot of times, but he certainly worked that out, I think, and that was a big moment in the Collingwood game. So we're just hoping Bailey Scott can recapture some form, spend a few weeks in the reserves, and hopefully can turn it around. Now, you did mention a couple of players there, LDU, Sheasel. Now, we'll start with LDU. I think he's had a good year, but the problem is we want him to go past that. Like, I think there's potential for him to be one of the best players in the competition, and I think that's where we get frustrated. He's got that Marcus Bontempelli in him. He can go forward. He can kick goals. He can break games open through clearance work. But we're just not seeing it often enough, Josh. Like, he's probably getting 20, 21 touches per game, and his skills are letting him down a little bit, especially his kicking. He is bushering the ball a little bit.
Yeah, he's never been the best kick, and I don't think he ever will be. I think there's a lot of Patrick Dangerfield in that way, where, or even I watch Bailey Smith for the Cats now, and he's that sort of guy that, and look, he's having a great season, but nothing he does is finesse. It's all brute work and getting the ball forward, and I think that's sort of our plan. I mean, I look at our midfield, and I don't think LDU, Wardlaw, Simpkin, or Power can kick very well at all. I think, but it seems to be, which is unfortunately our midfield core, but it doesn't seem to be the game plan to get clearance and make it non-contested. It feels like get the ball, get it forward, create stoppage, and then we go to work and score from stoppages. So I think with LDU, he's, like we pointed out before, his contested work has gone to another level. His stuff on the inside is of that I haven't seen from him. But then his outside game has suffered because of that. So you said it. I don't think he's having a bad year. And he's going to become a victim of, he's got the big contract now. And I think that's a valid argument maybe in a year's time or maybe next season. But he's also only played 5 games or something after he signed his big contract. So I think we're using that a little bit too harshly and a little bit too prematurely. I think we need to just chill out a little bit and understand that, he hasn't really done anything different from the start of the year to after he signed his contract. Now we just have this excuse of he's got the contract now, so he should be better. And that is valid, but maybe next year, let's let him have his season, and he's not playing badly at all. If this is the worst version of LDU, that means his floor is very high and his ceiling is even higher. So, I trust that he'll click. We all said this about Cam Zurhaar as well, and look what he's doing this year. Even a Dylan Stevens or Toby Pickett, the players can come on. So I'm not, like Sheasel and LDU, I'm not really worried about those two in the long term. And we're still playing pretty good. For us, we've improved a lot while they're not playing at their best as well. So I think that's a positive thing. And I do trust that, I'm sure him and definitely Harry know more than anyone that they're not playing to the level they can. So I think we'll see a big second half of the year from both of them, and especially LDU, because he's so exciting when he's on.
No, definitely. He definitely is. Like, he can kick goals and get 30 odd touches. And yeah, like you said, I think in the last few weeks he's
He's
been
been
number
pretty
one.
good.
He's been number one in contested possessions in the competition. So that's probably something that gets a little bit overlooked there. Now, Harry Sheezel, he seems like I don't think the club is helping him with changing his roles every few weeks. You know, it looked like he was going to go back to the back line. He was playing midfield earlier in the year, and then he was going forward. He played forward last game, rotating through the midfield. I mean, I don't think it's helping him, and probably, obviously, the Kane Corns thing has affected him. He even said so as much. I mean, we've got to remember he's still only 20 years not old, Josh, and I mean, you just said you just turned 30 off air, or you're about to turn 30. I mean, it's very different. Your mind from 30 to 20 years old. There's a lot of growth in that time, and we sometimes got to remember these kids are very vulnerable, and they do take things to heart, especially something like Kane Corns has said. And even he said, he goes, you can't ignore the external noise. I mean, you try, but you're going to hear things. And yeah, look, at the end of the day, it's probably a good thing that he's not captain just yet, because it's a lot of weight on his shoulders. But I think, he's not far away. He's still playing some good football, but the bar's just too high at the moment. He set the bar far too high in his first 2 years, and we're almost critical of him averaging 23 touches a game or something at the moment, still doing a few good things. So how do you see him?
Yeah, I mean, that is a good problem to have when the two players we're talking about now are probably like a B plus instead of an A plus. It's a much different problem than 12 to 18 months ago, where we're talking about Flynn Perez's and Phoenix Spices and Jack Marnie's. So we're clearly on some sort of right trajectory. But I think you're right. Him playing a different role every week doesn't help him, but he's almost sort of a victim of being really good at so many different positions as well, because you can stick him anywhere and he'll play a role. I don't know. I don't get the feeling they're going to play him in the same role every single week. I would love to see him back in the midfield and keep him in there until he gets better. I know. I mean, the preseason podcast we did with all of us gave me the label of the Tom Powell hater, but I would like to see Powell maybe more on the out, or play like a wing or a half back a little bit more, and maybe get Sheezel back in there. And if LDU is being that contested player in and under, Sheezel can be your outside player now. I've been calling for McKercher and O'Sullivan to get CBAs all season. I just don't understand. And we saw McKercher in that Tigers game. He was absolutely phenomenal with what he was doing. And he didn't click as much against the Pies, even though that system can take anyone out of the game. But McKercher's first half in that Pies game was really, really good as well, sort of getting a lot of midfield time and being that run past play. I want LDU getting the ball out of the bottom of the pack and give it to those guys running past. So maybe we can trial him in something like that. I think I would like to see him play that Toby Green role long term, but I think we're years away from being a comfortable enough side in the rest of the park to let Harry Sheezel play forward. Unfortunately, he's too good of a player to be able to stick him in the forward line and not regress in other areas. So if it was up to me, I'd be giving him more CBAs again and giving him another crack, almost like at this point last year we did. He played a lot of halfback with the first half last year, and then this point last year went to the midfield. I would like to see him do that again, or I don't mind him off halfback. I probably wouldn't be doing the off half forward thing until we're getting the production from the midfield that maybe we're wanting.
Well, it's pretty similar to how I've been saying it. When we become a good team, he can go on a forward 50. But right now, we're not a good team. We're an average team. And you put your good players right where the action is, and whether that's half-back. I mean, half-back is almost an extra midfielder this day and age. You see Connor Rosie playing off half-back, but he's pushing right up the ground, not playing on anyone.
Josh Dacos at the moment too.
Yeah, that's right. Probably one of the best rebound defenders in the competition the last month. So, yeah, but look, I think, there'll be better signs from him, not better signs, but he'll get back to his form pretty quickly. I'm actually not worried at all about Harry Sheezel, and I don't think anyone else should be, to be honest with you. Nick Larkey, any concerns with him? 24 goals this year, a few good games early. I think he was leading to Coleman in the first 6 or 7 rounds, but he's quietened down a little bit. Have you seen his production so far this year?
Yeah, it's definitely dropped off. Once again, a player that has a very, very high bar. And I think this is in a way a good problem to have, because he's still kicking goals every week. I I think and we've said this for years, a victim of how we enter that forward 50. And he was definitely 2 years ago, how he kicked 70 goals in a season from the most disgusting forward 50 entries you'll ever see. I don't know. Last
year, not a bad effort.
Yeah, mate, it's probably the best forward performance we've ever seen in AFL history. If you'd watch how we entered that forward 50, but I'm interested in your thoughts on this, Dean, because after the Collingwood game, I loved what we did in the first half, where the way we were moving the ball around to take the ball off Collingwood was a game plan shift that I haven't seen Clarkson pull in a game. So that was something that I was like, okay, we do have plan A's and plan B's to be able to go to. The first half for me, keepings off football, I think our disposal was really clean. And if we go back and watch the first half, the way we entered the forward 50 was a lot of chip kicks to players in space. We were creating a lot of shots on goal, and Larky was one of those from those areas. If we can continue to defend the way we've been doing and sort of find a nice mix between what we did in the first half against Collingwood and the grit and grind, get the ball and pump it forward stuff, I think he'll be fine. He's another player I'm not really concerned about in the long term at all, but I just don't understand why we don't play to his strengths more. Everybody knows that he can't take contested marks, but other than that, he does everything at a pretty elite level. So I'm confused why we can't play to his strengths a little bit more. I think he's a victim of the system more. His kicking hasn't been as good this year. I think he's going at 60% this year or something like that, which is still pretty good, but the career lows for him with what we know. So I think he'll be fine. But at the moment, if we can play to his strengths more with what we tried to do against the Pies, where it was chip mark, move into space, move the ball quickly and find pockets, I think he can get back to his best form in the second half of the year. But if we continuously bomb this thing long, I think your Zerhas and your Curtises are going to make more of that. It's also because Zerhas kicked 22 this season. Paul Curtis would have kicked, 30 goals potentially by this point of the season if he kept going. So numbers are down, but the forward line production, I think, is up with Zerha and Curtis's year this year. So he'll be fine, but I would like to, if we're going to bomb it long, I think your Curtises and your Zerhas are the ones to watch. And if we're going to enter the 50, I want Darling and those guys to help make space for him leading straight up the guts. And we just need to look for his chest. And if we can get Sheezers in the midfield, if Dylan Stephens can get the ball on the wing and get some space, or McKerches and Finn O'Sullivan's get the ball forward to centre, we've even seen Caleb Daniel do it a little bit more in the last couple of weeks, get forward a tiny bit more. We can deliver to this guy. So play to his strengths, and I think we'll be okay.
Well, last game was always going to be tough for forwards in general, the way we played. Yeah. I think the first half, I agree with you. I think we went in with a game plan that was our best chance to be competitive against the Pies. And we probably should have been 3 or 4 goals up in the first half. It's just Collingwood adjusted and went super aggressive, and we couldn't contain them in the second half. But that's what good sides do. And they're the best side in the competition by a fair way. They dismantled Hawthorn, was it last week? Yeah, last Friday or something like that.
Friday.
Yeah, and the second half was a completely different ball game. But I listened to your podcast. What's the guy's name you did it with again? I can't remember his name now. But
Joel. I think I did it with Joel.
Yeah, Joel, that's the one. The draft guy. I completely agree with you. I thought people were getting a bit out of line, sort of saying, same shit, we've been doing. It wasn't the same shit.
No, it wasn't.
This is complete. You're playing a completely different team. Like, fair enough. If the Swans Carlton game, you can say what you want, but that was sure. This is a different level we're talking about, and to be competitive for the first 3 quarters and give ourselves a chance to win a game. Like, we could have almost been in front at 3/4 time if Jai Simpkin kicks a goal on a siren. So. Yeah, we still lost, but to keep up.
But it's the first team on the ladder, and the system is more important than personnel. I think North Melbourne, we've got the personnel. I think is good, but the system isn't there yet, and that takes a season or 2 to build. We're not going to get a system and nail it in the first 2-3 months. That's just not how it works. And if people think that's how it works, then I don't know what you've been watching, but. It takes longer than that to develop. It takes years to develop a system. And the clubs that are Geelongs and Collingwoods and Hawthorns have had system set for years and years, and they just rotate lists. This is what I'm saying. We're fixing a club, not a list. And if we're fixing the list and kept the same game plan and same style or same sort of system from some more successful years, maybe we can plug and play. But that's not what it was. What I saw in that first half was a game plan that was different to anything we've done this year. We executed it well. And of course the Pies were going to come out and eventually get that win. They're the best team by a mile. And everyone's saying, oh, how do we not put someone on Dacos? 17 teams say, how did we not stop Dacos every single week? You can't just put someone on him and stop him. It's not that simple. He's the best player in the comp, arguably. So, yeah, the fourth quarter, absolutely not good enough. But I believe if we play that mix of what we did in the first half and that more contested style in the third, because I think we did a really good job of pushing them wide when they got their shots in the third quarter. We weren't giving them goals from the goal square directly in front, easy looks. We were pushing them wide and making them work for it. And they kicked a lot of points, but that was because we pushed them wide. Yeah. And that as a defensive system, along with what we try to do offensively, if we play like that against the bottom 10, I reckon we can win. I reckon we can win more games in the second half of the year. But, we're 6 months into a season or halfway through the season. It takes time to build this stuff. And maybe that's why my expectation wasn't through the roof this year. But talk to me in 3 years' time and we might be going, wow, look at our system now. And it starts this season. Because Clarkson said, as we heard in the preseason, he finally believes we've got a list that we can build a game plan around. That was at the best and fairest night. I think he said that. And this is the first season of building our formula, our style, our system. So give it time. It'll come together. We've got the talent. We just need the system.
I mean, we know, I watched the Collingwood game, obviously, but every time we got the ball, each player of their team knew exactly where to stand defensively and knew what to do when they got the ball. Knew where to run into space. Yeah, their system is absolutely elite. It's the standard of the AFL, to be honest with you. And we're still, we've still got a lot of young kids that are still learning at the moment. So we'll get there. There's no doubt about that. But I want to talk to you about the veteran recruits. Now, you can go through each one. Caleb Daniel sort of come in for some criticism. Some people have liked him. Some people sort of said, no, he's been useless. David King has been very critical of him, saying he's got nothing defensively. Luke Parker has come in, given us another bigger body in the midfield. And Jack Darling has shown signs of being Wayne Carey for quarters here and there. Still got his football smarts. Obviously lost his athletic ability, adding a little bit of leadership. Have you seen all those recruits and how they've fitted in?
Caleb Daniel is a very interesting one, isn't he? This is so split amongst North Melbourne fans. I'm pro Caleb Daniel. I think he's been good enough for us. Do I want more from him? Yes. But he's also coming into a pretty rubbish North team after playing in another team that I think is a perfect example of system, which is the Western Bulldogs. Yes, he's had some howlers, but everyone on the team has. I mean, LDU's had plenty of howlers, and Powell or Wardlaw's one we love, and he has some howlers. We don't criticize him as much. And I know Daniel is a much more experienced player. I'm interested. David King's a weird one for me. His criticism at the time when we traded for him was, I thought, ridiculous. Where he said pick 25 is way too much to give up, and maybe in a vacuum that is true, but realistically, a young team like North Melbourne, we don't need more pick 25s who are going to sit in the twos for a year and then maybe get 3-4 games by the end of the year. We need someone who can come in and lead the team and give us some veteran presence, and that's what he will do. Yes, he's had some howlers. Some of the things he does when he kicks out, he dribbles them along the ground, and I'm like, what are you doing, mate? But I think more often than not, he's been pretty solid. And once we get some better players around him and more confidence in the young players around him, you can see he's trying to do the right things, and he maybe doesn't have the guns that the Bulldogs around him that, like North Melbourne doesn't have those players. So weird by David King. I can see Pat here.
Yeah, Patrick is coming,
King is off on this one, mate, to be honest, because his criticism at the time was wrong. If you go to a Collingwood and say, would you rather pick 25 or Caleb Daniel? They're going to take pick 25. But if you ask North Melbourne, I'd take Caleb Daniel 10 times over. We've got heaps of pick 25s. We've got heaps of 18, 19, 20-year-olds. I don't want just more young players. If there's no one there to teach the young players, they're never going to get better. So I think Caleb Daniel's been all right. I think the criticism is very harsh on him. Not saying he doesn't need to improve some things, but I guarantee you next year, the year after, we're going to be going, thank God we got him, and I think there's plenty of players on the list at the moment. Constanti's another one where you look at and go, he's not doing enough, but he's 20 years old, he's only played 10 games in his career. next year he might take another step up, like some players haven't been better. So look, I'm gonna give Caleb Daniel a tick so far, a light tick so far. But I understand the criticism, but I think it's a little bit unwarranted. Luke Parker, last couple of weeks a bit quieter, but when you look at the body of work, I think he's been really, really good. Just everything you wanted him to be, I think he's doing for us. The debate is, do you want him to play more midfield? Do you want him to play more forward? I personally don't mind him in the midfield a little bit more at this point. Maybe next year, the year after, I think we can maybe start playing him more forward. But and I love him to bits, but until Wardlaw starts to step up a little bit more and get 20 plus possessions every game, until LDU and Shees are back in there, until maybe McKercher is in there more, until we get the midfield we want really humming, I don't mind his grunt work in there. So I like Luke Parker. I think that's an A+ signing. I said it at the time, there's absolutely no criticism on this signing at all. Couple of down weeks for him, but I'll allow him to have a couple of weeks that have been a little bit flatter when he's been doing what he's been doing. He was our best player, arguably him and Curtis, our two best players over the first 6 weeks of the season. So massive ticks for Luke Parker. You can see he cares as well. I think that's something that's really, really good. The criticism is always going to be, he's come for a paycheck. He cares. Every single time we give up a goal, you can see he's upset. He loses a contest, you can see he's upset. So, he's almost like the captain behind the captain, which is his perfect role, to be honest. Jack Darling, ticks across the board for me for him. Yes, he had a few down weeks, but my expectation of Jack Darling was maybe 25 goals this season, but it's the blocking, it's the leading patterns, it's the structuring of our forward line. And I don't think it's any surprise that Curtis and Zerha are having the years they're having once Jack Darling is there. Controversial take. I don't think he's that bad in the ruck. I know a lot of people say
I agree.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of criticism for him in the ruck, and is he a good ruckman? No, but he's not a ruckman. But physically, he doesn't get bullied. There's a few times that he's been pushed out of a contest, and we've got a goal, and Tex Walker kicked one on him, and Tom Lynch did as well. But that's a couple of moments from our season where he's had 10 CBAs or something in a game. I think he chops out well enough. I would still love to see a Bryn Teakle get a chance, maybe over a Finbar. I like Finbar. I'm not saying to drop him, but I would like to see a Teakle get a chance and maybe play that role, because as we've seen, as you pointed out before, Dean, that he's nearly won us the game a couple of times. Brisbane, his last quarter was fantastic, and he's popped up against the Tigers and stuff like that to be a really handy player. So keeping him in the forward line, I think, would be better, and maybe just a Teakle in the ruck would be better for him. But I love what he's bringing. I think our forward line at the start of the year functioned really, really well and looked really dangerous. I'm a lot more confident that we're going to score once we get an inside 50, and I don't think it's any coincidence that it's since he's been there. Not maybe because of his personal stats, but like we said, blocking off the ball, leading patterns, directing traffic up there, and just taking a defender away from Larky or a Zerha or someone like that. I think all three signings have been good so far from where we're at in the ladder.
I didn't even look at it. Cameron Zerha's kicked 20-odd goals, and Paul Curtis was kicking 2 goals a game until he got suspended. Last week he kicked 1 against the Pies, so it's obviously had an influence on them. So, Pat came in with those exact words as well. So he's still got his football smarts. Like, if you ever watch him, he knows how to read the play. Yeah, very. He took that great mark against Harris Andrews in the last quarter. I think he had a really good last quarter, and that one almost got us over the line. We'll talk about a few out-of-contract players and how their future is looking at the club. It's looking pretty bleak for some of them. Will Phillips, only the 4 games. Eddie Ford can't get a game, although he's looking pretty good in the reserves as an intercepting defender right now. And Cooper Harvey, he's kicking goals for fun in the reserves, but still hasn't got an opportunity. Do you expect to see any of those players at the club next year? It doesn't look great for them, Josh.
Yeah, my gut sort of says the same. With Eddie Ford, it's a weird one. We had a conversation on the mid-season review that I did a few days ago where we talked about Zane Dersma, for me, being a player that I maybe think has been underwhelming. And when you look at the twos, they're playing him in the midfield, they're playing him off half back. And that's pretty similar with Eddie Ford. Eddie Ford's sort of going back. You can take that as in a role reinvention, but to me, that more means that the club doesn't see them in the long-term plans, and they're just trying them in different spots because they can't fit them in anywhere. I love Eddie Ford. Obviously, did the live show with Eddie, and I think it's criminal that he hasn't been given a shot as the sub at least. I know he's a victim of a lot of players in his position, but especially with Curtis and Zerha doing what they're doing down there, it's hard to fit him in the team. But with a Bailey Scott not playing well, him on the wing, I think could be an option, because he's played that before. But throwing him to half back just makes me feel like he's out of favour and he's not going to get an opportunity. I'd love to see him play, and he's done okay at that half back role. But who's coming out of the team for him to play half back? Hardiman's not, Daniel's not, Jackson Archer will come straight back in. Pink and Comben aren't going anywhere at the moment, and I think Core will play plenty of games. So, unless they're making that sort of move, I don't know, to be honest with you. I love Eddie Ford, and I think he deserves opportunity. But do you agree with that? It just moving players around just feels like he's out of favour and they don't know what to do.
There might be a last gasp attempt at him maybe being an inset player, because obviously they don't see him as a player that can come into the forward half. They've obviously got plans for Zane Duursma, and he's the younger guy, so they want to develop him. But Eddie Ford's only, 22, 23 years old. I don't know why they've given up on him so easily. Yeah. He's never played a bad game. He's been in a team. I've said all along, he's the best 22 player. It's just circumstances have pushed him out of the team. You got Darling. They're playing Finbar, Malley, Costanti, Larkey, Curtis, Zerha. You got the rest of those midfielders there as well, Wardlaw, Sheasel, and who else. So he's getting squeezed out because of that. And it's really unfortunate because, he should be aggrieved at his manager for accepting the 1-year contract last year, where he should have maybe looked at other clubs who would have offered him 2 or 3 years. Could be it for him too, Josh, which would be, quite sad if he doesn't get another opportunity. Could be another Curtis Taylor.
I think he'll get it. I think he'll get an AFL contract next year.
I really do.
Yeah, same. I mean, as we met him at the live show, and he's a ripper bloke. Yeah, absolutely. Really, really like. And I hope he stays at North. I love the guy, but he's a lot better than a Curtis Taylor is. I think at least an AFL club will be stupid not to give him a shot at some point. But we can sort of transition into Will Phillips here a little bit. I sort of feel the same. I don't think Will Phillips will be here at the start of next season. And to be honest, unless you're playing him as a tagger, I don't maybe see exactly what he does that other players can't do. I like Will Phillips, and I've wanted him to get, when he's played, I think he's been good. And I've said on the podcast, I'd like him to get a little run. But then every time he does get a little run, he sort of averages like 13 touches a game, and he's only tagged 3 games his entire life. So as much as I'm like, he can tag, he can't tag because he's played the tagger role 3 times in his however many games he's played. So clearly the club doesn't see that in him. West Coast is the rumor for him, and unfortunately, I feel like if you go to West Coast, that's last legs of your AFL career at the moment. But he's a good player, and I think in a different system, he can be a really valuable player. And at this point, I'm sort of pro Will Phillips moving on just for his sake, because he needs to play football, and I want to see him succeed. So, yeah, like Pat is saying, like depth is important, and that's why last year I was like, well, we should keep Curtis Taylor, not to play every week, but in case those players go down. But I guess Eddie Ford has become that depth player, and almost like Will Phillips is almost maybe too good to be a depth player. And maybe that's why he signed a 1-year deal as well. He wanted to see if they were going to play him because he can back his ability as well. Maybe it wasn't a case of us just being like, 1 year and that's it. And he's like, I love the place, so I'm going to prove myself. It could have been a case of, well, I'll take the 1 year, but more to try and either get myself in the shop window or I can move on before I get too old and my value goes down. So, I don't think we'll see them. And as for Cooper, if he doesn't play games in the next month, he won't be on the list next year. He deserves games. I don't think you should take Constanti out of the team. I know this is another hot topic. I think Constanti is sort of building slowly, but well. I think he laid the most tackles for us in the Collingwood game, and he's getting on the scoreboard every week now. Only 1 goal, but he's getting a couple of shots a game. And he's a bit of a spark, and he can just have a moment out of nowhere that makes either a big tackle that sets the tempo, or just buzzing around and kicks a goal, and you're like, I like that. And then he'll go missing. But I don't think you should drop Constanti. I think try and play both of them down there, because the smaller, buzzier players are going to be better. I would nearly try maybe a Finbar out for a Cooper Harvey, just so we're not too tall down there. And I like Finbar, but he's got to go back and work on his kicking in a major way, because I don't trust him with a shot at goal from anywhere on the ground at the moment. And his hands, his marking ability is very, very exciting. But if he can go back and apply his trade and kick some goals and get a better set shot routine, come back in the team, and maybe you could be the partner next to Larky. But at the moment, I'd nearly try a smaller forward line with a Cooper Harvey instead of a Finbar. I know I said Bryn Tickle before, which I would still like to see, but if they're going to go the tall route, give me Bryn. If you're going to go the smaller route, like a lot of teams, like Collingwood's and like Hawthorns do these days, and Brisbane's, give Cooper a crack. I don't see why not. His form warrants it. If Bailey Scott and Griffin Logue can get called up after getting 4 touches a week, surely Cooper Harvey can come in after 3 to 5 goals. So if he doesn't play in the next month, I just, my gut says he's not going to be on the list, but I think he warrants selection. I don't know what's going on off the field. That's always been the questions with him, but I think he warrants a crack.
No, yeah, he would add a lot of class at forward 50. He's shown that in the reserves. He's not your classic front and square, small forward type of play. He's more of a markup sort of like in the Paul Curtis mould. But yeah, I'd like to go a little bit smaller and just give him a try. I mean, what's the worst that can happen if you give him 3 or 4 weeks? If he's not up to it, then you just put him back in the reserves, and that's probably it. But yeah,
it depends if Zach Banch plays over him too.
That's
talking to Joel, he thinks Banch might come in and make an impression. I mean, your man Geordie Payne as well. He's been an emergency, so I think it's really interesting to see who gets the first crack. I mean, what you said is correct. Like, Cooper's not that small forward, and I think I'd like him to be that small forward. I feel like physically he looks like that small forward, but his type of game maybe is a bit more of a lead up, and that could also be what's keeping him out of the side, because adding another lead up player on top of Zurhaar and Curtis just doesn't make sense for the balance of the forward line. Would love to see Harvey, but if he's not playing that front and center role, I'd probably rather a bench, or I know we've never seen him play, but say he gets a bit of continuity, I'd rather try a player of that ilk. I don't think Hansen is going to play that role. I don't think he's physical enough to be a front and square player. I like him, and I hope he gets another crack, because I think his skills are quite smooth at times. But another crummer, like if we could get any sort of Bobby Hill, Charlie Cameron, even, I mean, those sort of players front and square, geez, we'd be a better team. I loathe for the day that I have to watch that. But anyway.
Yeah, someone with a bit of pace too. I think we'd really like that. It's been so immobile, that forward line. As soon as the ball hits the ground, it looks like it gets walked out by defences far too easily. In the last few weeks, I've noticed. So yeah, it'd be nice just to see what this young. I mean, we might as well transition into the mid-season draft. I'm a bit pessimistic about mid-season draft, only because of previous history, because we don't seem to get anyone out of it. If you get a role player, I think you're doing pretty well out of the mid-season draft. I know we get excited by the new things, but then expectations temper pretty quickly. But Zach Banch, he might have that little bit of an X factor. Cooper Trenbath, I don't mind taking a bit of a lottery ticket on this kid. I mean, we've seen him for one game. He looked pretty good. I watched him that game. He couldn't kick for shit. He kicked a couple out on the full from about 30 metres out, but that doesn't matter. But he's got something about him. Who knows? He might find it the next time Stewart. If it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. It doesn't really matter. Are you expecting much from these boys or not really?
I think, I don't know, a little spoiler, like not a spoiler, but a little bit of news for me. I actually was lucky enough to get an interview with Cooper, and I'll be putting that out in within the next week. So there's an interview with me and Cooper Trenbath coming out on Further North, which will be really, really exciting. And he sort of talks about, his role. He's an East Side boy like I am as well. And
he's up your way, Blackburn or something?
Yeah, played for Blackburn, and a mate of his actually comes into the barbershop where I work, and he connected us together. And he was kind enough to jump on the podcast, and we've recorded it. I've just got to edit it and all that sort of stuff, and that will be coming out. Really well spoken. He's an absolutely ripping bloke, Cooper. He's just, I don't know, he's the type of guy I'd like to hang out with. So he's going to be a favourite of mine. We chatted about what he expects for him, and it is more just like VFL repetition. It is hard with the amount of talls we've got in the VFL at the moment. Like, we've got to be the tallest team in AFL, VFL history.
I heard you say that the other day. Yeah.
I would genuinely, if anyone's out there who can get a stat on the tallest ever fielded teams, I would love to know, because we're rocking with about 10 key position players at this point, which is absolutely crazy. But Cooper, I don't know if he plays. He'd have to have an out. There's Whitlocks and Will Dawson's ahead of him, and Finbar and Teakles and stuff. But he's a long-term prospect, and his leaping ability is really exciting. So he's played forward his whole juniors, and then was playing in the back line for Blackburn, which he was doing really well in, and then got thrown forward again for North. So he could play any end of the ground. As for Zach Banch, I get excited by the mid-season draft every single year. Apart from Jacob Edwards, and there was some bloke that we drafted with the first ever one that I can't remember his name.
Lockie Hosey?
Lockie Hosey. I think it might be Lockie Hosey.
Yeah, from South Australia.
Yeah, so we haven't done too badly in the mid-season draft. Look, it's not about getting Durhams and Newcombs and things and Ned Longs and things. I mean, they're the exceptions. It drops off majorly after that. And then when you look at it, I think Callan Dawson is one of the more successful mid-season draft pick selections when you actually look through the names that were picked in the games they've played. Robert Hansen Jr. as well has played a decent amount of games for mid-season draft picks and has earned more contracts, where a lot of those guys are off the lists. So we actually haven't been as bad as we feel. Jacob Edwards really makes us feel like we're a shocking mid-season draft pick team. But I also think the expectation shouldn't be to come in and play AFL games within the first 12 to 18 months. I would say Bryn Teakle's been one of the more successful mid-season draft picks. Callan Dawson definitely is. Robert Hansen, I think, can be as well. And I think we get harshly judged on the mid-season draft. Zach Banch, he plays a position that we really need. And that is and it's still widely up for grabs, by the way, as well. So I would expect maybe at least 1 or 2 games from him by the end of the season, just because he's in fantastic form in the VFL. He looks physically ready, quick, but he's built quite solid. If him and Robert Hansen ran into each other at training, I think Robert Hansen's hitting the deck pretty hard. But I don't know. I would expect at least a couple of games from him because we do lack that position so much. Payne and Harvey should be given a shot before him, especially a Geordie Payne. I'd still like to see him. But I think Zach Banch has more goal threat than Geordie Payne. Geordie Payne's tackling fantastic, as we know, but Constantius is too. Cooper Harvey's definitely more of a goal threat, but doesn't play that small role. So Zach Banch, in a way, is almost an amalgamation of all the things we're missing. He's got a bit of what Constanti does, a bit of what Cooper does, a bit of what we want Robert Hansen to do, a bit of what Geordie Payne might do. And he's that sort of player, but he is the mid-season draft pick, and it doesn't mean he's like crazy talented like a top 10 pick would be. So, I don't know if I expect anything this season except for maybe a game or two by Zach Banch, but it's about next year and it's about the year after as well. And it's more long-term thinking, I think, if we're looking for things here and now. That's why we got Teakle last year, and he came in a goal a game, was that marking player on the wing we needed. I think he was fantastic for us at the back half of last year. And I'm shocked. He's only 24. I'm shocked he hasn't played this season, especially with his form in the VFL, arguably being better than a Finbar. So, I maybe am slightly higher on the mid-season draft, but I also think it's me trying to make it more positive off the top of my head, but there are definitely more positives there. I think we've actually been one of the slightly more successful mid-season draft picks when you think of, or drafting teams, when you think of Dawson and Robert Hansen and Teakle and stuff like that.
Yeah, Callan Dawson's probably slipped down the pecking order a little bit now too. It's probably between him and Griffin Logue if one of those tools do come out. I'm not.
Jeez, I hope it's Logue, mate, but it doesn't feel like it at the moment at all, which is crazy.
No, his VFL form's been average at best, to say the least, which is shocking.
It would be just a thing for Logue as well, though, and not that I watch heaps of VFL, but it would be hard for him to stand out when there's 4 key defenders down there as well. So I don't know if
Tomlinson's been the standout. Yeah.
Tomlinson's been great, but then you got Whitlock and Dawson sort of plays back and plays forward. But Callan Dawson there as well. I mean, the amount of tall players down there. How is a key position player meant to play their role at VFL level and stand out when there's a bunch of 2 meter tall trees around them? You know what I mean? So it'd be hard for Griffin as well, but no excuse. I mean, he hasn't justified getting a call up at all, to be honest. He's on plenty of coin, so I would like him to be able to be worth that as well. So anyway, Toby Pink, undroppable at the moment. So sorry, Griffin. Toby has taken your space, mate.
It's interesting you mentioned Bryn Teakle before. I just had a thought, and he hasn't played much ruck in the VFL this year. They've gone Taylor Goad as number one ruck, and Bryn Teakle's played a lot forward. I think his best position is a ruckman that can go forward. And that's fair enough. He can't get a game ahead of Tristan Sherry. He's no way he should be.
No, but I think it's good for Goad to be the ruckman in the twos because he's the long-term prospect, right?
And last year,
Goad's putting up Jacob Edwards numbers, and then this year he's so far and away improved and still a long way off an AFL call-up. But I would also like to see Teakle and Goad in the VFL rotate. If Goad could turn into that Luke Jackson, and Jerry could be such an elite combination in 2 or 3 years. Imagine, 208 centimetre Taylor Goad playing down in the forward line as well, being able to mark and kick a goal. And then when he goes into the ruck, he's almost like a fourth midfielder with his running capacity like a Luke Jackson. And this is years away, so I'm not expecting that to happen anytime soon. But, you're right. Teakle is a good ruckman, but I don't know. He's shown that he can play in the forward line, like a goal a game with no preseason last year and a pretty bad North Melbourne team. That's a great performance, and he's physically ready. He's a great mark, and he's going to be better in the ruck than Darling. And is he going to kick more goals than a Darling? I don't think he would drop Darling, by the way. I would take him out and put him in for Finbar. But I'm surprised. Why do you think Teakle hasn't got a shot? Why do you think they're playing Finbar over him and not maybe giving him a crack when arguably his VFL form warrants a call up over those guys?
Yeah, I just think we're tall enough as it is, and they went Finbar ahead of him, to be honest with you. Whether he deserves the spot ahead of Bryn Teakle, it would probably be borderline. They both had similar years in the VFL. Yeah. I don't think one's been different to the other. I think Bryn Teakle's missed a few shots too, where he should have kicked goals, which might have put him in front if he kicked 3 or 4, instead of kicking 1 goal 3, 1 goal 4. That's hurt him a little bit. Yeah, but he was serviceable in his role last year. Another player I've almost forgotten that's going to make us tall is Callum Collins-Jones came into the team.
Kicked a goal in his return game, but so did
he. Looked okay.
In that game, to be fair, yeah.
I mean, you would have gone out there and kicked a goal against Collingwood. But...
I would have got a few, Dean. You should have seen my 16s form back in the day.
Yeah, you've mentioned that a few times, but
that's right. I'm clinging on to anything. I'm rubbish now. I played one game of futsal after I turned 30, and I got Achilles tendonitis. So look, I know my glory days have gone, but I've got to cling on to my leading goal kicker in the under 16s.
Yeah, what's his name? Guy Sebastian just played a local game of footy, did his Achilles. So
I did see that. Yeah. Maybe if you played well, we could have got him in the mid-season draft. That'd be all right.
Yeah, well, who knows with Rawlings and what he picks up in this day and age. So, but yeah, I mean, I'm not too sure where Bryn Teakle's future is at the moment. He's out of contract at the end of the year. So, but look, I think he's worth keeping because he's a big body, and if something did happen to Tristan Sherry, I'd be more confident with him coming in as a number one ruck ahead of Taylor Goad at this stage. So, touch wood, nothing happens to Tristan Sherry.
Do you think there's any hope for CCJ?
He'll need to hit the ground running in the second half of the year.
Another 2-metre player to add to that VFL team as well.
Well, we've got that Tarrant as well, haven't we?
Yeah, so, he's playing all right too.
Yeah, he's not a bad tall. So we've got about 8 of them that are over about 198 centimetres.
Crazy.
Yeah, it is a bit crazy, but what can you do?
I kind of hope he does something, D. I was so hot on him a couple of years ago because I think he was just what he's meant to be is the player we need so badly. That backup ruckman who's a better forward but can go into the ruck and be really serviceable. And I 2 seasons ago, he was nearly doing everything we wanted. He was so close. He would clunk a mark and just drop it, or he would just do everything 98% of everything good and then screw up the last little bit of it. And then it just dropped away completely. And then the Achilles, and it's just been a nightmare for him. And he's the prototype of player we need so desperately. And if him, Teakle or Goad can turn into that, I think we can be a really, really good team. I really worry that we haven't drafted correctly in this space where, and let me know if you agree with this. If Will Dawson and Matt Whitlock don't both work out within the next 2 seasons at each end of the ground, they can't play both at the same end. They've got to work out at one end and the other. I think we're going to look back on not getting a proper forward and be like, that's the reason that we haven't been a more successful club. That's the reason we missed out in the finals, or we're not kicking enough goals. Because and I've said this so much, I'm not going to beat a dead horse here, but I'm shocked they're not playing Whitlock as a forward. And I know they're trialing Will Dawson down there, but he's been a defender his whole life, and I just don't understand what they're doing down there. So I would love to know a little bit of reasoning as to why they're playing where they are. But, the spot next to Larkey, and Darling's holding down the fort well enough, but in a year or two's time, I think this is still the biggest hole on our list, because at least we've got bodies in the small forward area. We've got so many key defenders. Matt, do we need to upgrade talent-wise in a key defender? Probably, but we've got bodies. The second key forward role is so up for grabs, and I just don't know who grabs it. And I feel like we're going to look back in a few years' time and be like, how did we not draft a key position forward, from the draft? And that's what I thought Whitlock was, and he's apparently not. It just baffles me.
Yeah, look, and I think Will Dawson, half the reason he has gone forward is because we just got too many defenders that are too tall. Well, he's the best option. We'll just put him there. I would have tried Matt Whitlock down there, to be honest.
Yeah, why Dawson and not Whitlock? It just blows my mind. Whitlock's a utility. That means he can play both ends of the ground, and Dawson is a defender. Anyway, I'm losing my head now.
Yeah, we've got Eddie Ford in that back line. He's probably the smallest defender we've got at the moment. He's about 188 centimetres. So. Yeah, we could talk about this forever. But anyways, what do you want to see for the rest of the season? Do you want to see more wins, more development, Eddie Ford, Cooper Harvey? Combination of everything?
Apart from a Bryn Teakle 5-goal game in the AFL, which is probably number one for me. We need to win games. We need to. If we're not, we need to get to 6 wins, I think. And at an absolute bare minimum for me, if we won 5 games plus the Brisbane draw, if we don't get blown out second half of the year at all, I'd nearly pass that just because my expectation was a little bit lower, and I think it's a gradual build. Yeah. But I think we need to win 4 from now to the end of the year. I think we need 4 wins to make it feel like we've had a good season compared to last year, and not get blown out. If we get a couple of blowouts, we play the Hawks down Tassie. I mean, I know the Hawks aren't looking incredible right now, but that's always going to be.
They'll bounce back against us.
Yeah, of course. They'll play them into form. And we play the Cats, they're probably going to be blowouts. But other than that, we've got winnable games in there. The Saints are hot and cold. We play the Tigers again. We still play the Eagles. The Freo are hot and cold. We play Melbourne again. We've got winnable games in there. We need to win probably 4 for me by the end of the season. Obviously, keeping our defensive ability or the structure defensively, like keeping teams around the 100-point or under mark, I think is super, super important. And I think it's just getting our stars back into their form and finding roles. Like that, the reason I'm so hot on this Collingwood game is because I saw something that I haven't seen from this team for a long time, which is maybe a glimpse of what our offense is going to turn into being, which is possession football and moving the ball, but then being able to switch into that contested brute style football as well. And it was a mix and match of both. And if offensively we can play like that against some teams, I think we can win. So I'd like to see an offensive game plan come to fruition while maintaining what we're doing in defense. That's probably the balance I would like to find. And if we do those things, I think we can win those games. But there's plenty of winnable games back half of the year. I think we need wins, and I want to be positive going into games. Even we play Sydney as well. It's in Sydney, so that's tough. But they look rubbish right now, to be honest. Got flogged by 90-odd points, 80-odd points. So if we can get all of our sections of the ground clicking, I think we can be a really, really good team because we've got the talent. So if we can bring the system on, mate, we could win 5 games. Who knows? But maybe I'm like Marnie Cohen now. I'm being too optimistic.
Well, I think she expects us to win every game. So
she said that on the review podcast as well. She goes, we win every game.
Yeah. Oh, look, we all go with expectations to win every game. I assume every player does that when they go in, but it doesn't always work like that, especially when you won 17 of your last 118 games. So it makes it a little bit difficult in that regard.
Yeah, that hurts. What do you want to see, Dean? What do you want us to do in the back half of the year?
I want to see some players get that opportunity. I would like to see Eddie Ford, even if they trial him as an intercepting defender. Who knows? You might find something. Give him a few weeks. If it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out.
Where's Josh Goder as well? I'd like to see
3 or 4 weeks away from being 3 or 4 weeks away.
Yeah, I've heard you say that. Yeah.
I don't know. I think he's rugged up with Bailey Tyson at the moment. Might be close to death's door. I honestly don't know. He had his birthday today. Josh Goder. I think it was on social. So I'm glad he's alive. So that's
true. Because he's that sort of player, isn't it?
He's a good. He'd be a good rebound defender like Harden.
But 190 centimetre as well, can take an intercept. So Yeah, I mean, look, I agree with you. I'd like to see some rotation, but I almost hope we don't rotate because we're playing well enough that we have the same team in every single week. So how many wins would make you happy by the end of the season? I know we don't sometimes like wins or not. It's about, the performances, but how many wins to make you happy, Dean?
I'd love to get to 6.5, but it might be 4.5, 5.5.
Do you think?
Yeah, I'd love to get to 6.5. It's a tough draw. It starts with this week. If we don't win this week, then everything goes out the window, Josh. Yeah,
you're totally right. Yeah, but everything I just said, put an asterisk on that because if we don't beat West Coast, we're not winning the game for the rest of the year.
Well, we might not. But there's like 50-50 games. I mean, you obviously talk about Richmond, but they're going pretty well, Josh. They should have beaten GWS. So there's certainly no certainties against them.
That is true. I mean, I think maybe they drop off a tiny bit back half of the year, and I think we've got the maturity to sort of come on. I hope so too. But I'm going down to that game. We play them in Tassie, our last ever Tassie game. So, if I'm showing up down there, I would hope they put in a performance if I'm traveling all the way down there for them. So, but we beat Richmond, so we should expect to beat them. We should expect to compete with the Saints and maybe beat them. We smashed Melbourne. I know they look better now, but then they go and lose games like they did to the Saints, and you're like, what's going on? Yeah. So there are plenty of winnable games. I would nearly say for the Fremantle, they've been a little bit better of late than maybe they started the first 6 to 8 weeks of the season. But, I would nearly say we can beat Fremantle over there. Our record's good over there. We can beat the Eagles. We can beat the Saints. We can beat the Tigers, beat the Ds. We can beat even the Swans potentially, even though that's me stretching it. Even the Blues, mate. Like and look, they're not good at all, and they smashed us, and kudos to them for that. But we're not going to play like that again. I believe we've got the system is coming on enough. So even just there's 6 or 7 games that I think we can potentially be in and win, and that's not even with a performance like we put in against the Lions. So I would be very, very disappointed if we got to 4 or 5 wins this year. I think I've seen enough positives at the first half of the year. And remember, I'm the negative guy on my podcast. So I'm always the pessimist, and I know that we're years away from being good, but I've seen enough in the first half. I know we're not happy with the wins and the fade outs in games, but if you can look past the emotional side of that and see the things structurally we're trying to do and see the things defensively we're doing, and, players getting continuity now and coming into their own, more of that to me means more wins in the back half of the year. And I think we can win 4 to 5 of those games back half of the year. Give me 4 because I don't want to get too carried away, but 4 wins minimum for me in the back half of the year.
There you go. You heard it from Josh first. We're going to play finals. We're going to win all the games.
That's right.
It's going to turn quickly. That was your message earlier in the show, wasn't it? It's
absolutely. It turns overnight, guys. Don't worry. It's not a 6-year process that we've been waiting for and crying for 6 years straight. It'll turn overnight.
No, that's exactly right. That's the message I got earlier. I've seen your votes for the top 3. It looks like it's going to be Tristan Sherry, unless injury or he tackles someone and gets suspended for 4 weeks or whatever it is.
Very likely.
Do you have anyone different, like in the top 3 at the moment, that you think will finish there by the end of the year?
Good question. I mean, I guess right now, Sherry, Parker, and Paul Curtis, I would say. The only other, I'm trying to think, would Zerha be there? Potentially.
I think LDU will come up. Yeah, I think
LDU, LDU for sure. That's probably my top 5 at the moment, those 5. But, I mean, Sherry, I don't think anyone can really knock him off. Parker has been fantastic. And, I guess Paul Curtis. There's not really anyone else knocking down the door except for LDU and maybe Zerha. And potentially some of the other players are maybe a little bit too far behind already to maybe catch them up, because I think they've been the 5 standouts, to be honest, in the first bit of the year. Colby maybe comes on as a big second half. I hope Sheasel with that as well, potentially. Other than that, I don't see too many breakout players. Charlie Comben, really, really solid. I think
he's had a good year.
6th. Yeah. One-on-one, he's been much better this year. We haven't had too many times where we're all saying one-on-one, he's so poor. And his kicking has got a lot better as well this year. Had a couple of howlers, and he's always going to. But, his switch nearly won us the game against Brisbane, and that was a high IQ moment. And, even against Richmond, he was intercepting, and I think he went at 100% kicking efficiency on 20 or 18 odd touches or something like that. So the howlers doesn't mean one howler in 10 doesn't mean he's a bad kick, even if it is shocking. So look, yeah, that's probably your top 5 or 6 for me at the moment. And I said Caleb Daniel would be top 3 in our best and fairest at the start of the year, which probably isn't looking great at the moment. But, he's another potential to come back stronger and just, if we can get more defensive stability and just play a better brand of football, he can really excel in that system. So, yeah. Do you have anyone else that you would throw in the hat there?
No, I don't think so, to be honest with you. I think it'll be, Sherry by the length of Flemington straight.
Yeah, by the length of Tristan Xerri, 2 meters.
Yeah, well, pretty much, yeah. I can't see anyone getting too close to him the way he's going. He's almost carrying a team. I think one player that you're missing out on here is Tom Powell. You didn't mention him. Josh,
and rightly so, because I hate Tom Powell, Dean. I hate him so much. He's been good. I mean, look, I've tried to justify my Tom Powell. You've really started something with this, Dean. I get messages every single week about this, which is wild. But just to justify my Tom Powell comments, so everybody understands, I like Tom Powell, and he's a good player. He's having a very good season, but the hype for him in the preseason and the start of last year was he's going to explode.
I was out of control.
And I don't think, but at the preseason performances, I think that was justified. I did a podcast saying the Tom Powell hype is real, because he was bursting out of contests and so explosive, and he's been really solid, but I would like him to take a slight step up and be more that guy. If LDU is doing the contested work now and not being the guy on the outside, Sheezer's not in there, get Tom Powell on the outside and get him some ball running pass, because he can push the pace. He can move the ball forward and get a lot of meters gained. And yes, I don't think he's a very good kick, but he's not a bad decision maker, especially by hand. So, I don't think he's bad. I just want him to be better, because I think my expectation of him is quite high. He's a high draft pick. He's been on the list for 5 years and 2 preseasons in a row where we've been saying this is the breakout year, and he maybe hasn't had the breakout year. And I want him to, because I think he can be really, really good. So, yeah, look, I don't hate you, Tom Powell. I love you. But please take that step up and, get everyone off my back about the Tom Powell stuff, because I don't hate you. This sticks with me so much.
Yeah, I noticed that. Look, he played a lot on the wing against Collingwood. Pretty much played most of the game. Only had 6 CBA, so that might be his role. He had 28.
And I don't mind that from him. I don't think he's the best stoppage player. I think he's a good player. A stoppage around the ground, yes, but I don't think he's the best CBA player. I think that Wardlaw, LDU, Parker, even Sheezel, McKercher, what he showed in that Richmond game, those guys I think are going to be better at that role. I think him getting the ball in some more space and pushing us forward is a better role for him. I really believe that. And I think he's good by hand. So, look, him making a spot in that midfield and playing wide. Bailey Scott's not there. Go and take Bailey Scott's position. Him and Dylan Stephens and Tom Powell on the wing, and you can rotate McKercher and O'Sullivan's through there. And there's your winger rotation. You know what I mean? He also puts his body on the line, and he's physical. He's not going to, back out of a tackle or something like that. So half back wouldn't be a bad spot. And also he can kick a goal. He kicked a great goal against the Pies as well. So he can play from back flank to forward flank along a wing. And I think that's a position I'd like to see him play, because I don't think his best work is done in the centre bounce. I think it's on the outside.
It's funny, when he's in close and he's in tight, he does his best work where he handballs and finds play in space. Then when you give him space and he's got all this time to make a decision, he butchers it. So, which is pretty much
bombing it long. But his run and carry is good. He can run. He can hit the pack at pace, and he's physical enough to break a tackle, step someone, and go. And yes, he just bombs the ball in long. And I still just am baffled by multiple players on our list who can't seem to think that that's not the wrong thing to do. Sometimes that is correct, but the difference between us and a Collingwood or something is they know when to bomb the ball long, and they know when to take a little bit more time. A guy like LDU has more space. His explosiveness is one of the best in the league, and he makes this space, but his brain must go, you don't have much space, let's get the ball going. And instead you're like, take 2 more steps, mate, and put it in front of Larky and get this bloke kicking 50, 60 a year. But look, I maybe that'll be one of the last things to come into our system one day. But look, there's my Tom Powell comments. No more of this I hate Tom Powell stuff, because people are bullying me at this point, and I don't like it.
You're getting trolled.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. Every time I mention him in my podcast, I'm just like, oh God, the YouTube comments are just going to. I put out an hour of a fantastic podcast, and one thing about Tom Power is said, and everything's wrong. You hate Tom Power, and I just can't win. So anyway, that's the internet. I've got to understand the environment I'm in.
No, that's exactly right. That's social media this day and age, unfortunately for you, Josh.
Absolutely.
You don't remember the good comments. You only remember what negative ones they give you. So
absolutely.
It's funny how that works. Anyways, for people that don't know where you are, where can they find you, and what do you got coming up?
Further North podcast, out in all the podcast spots, YouTube, Apple, Spotify. YouTube's doing really well right now, so please subscribe over there. And I've got the Cooper Trembath interview coming up in the next few days, which is really, really exciting. An awesome chat with him, a really well-spoken young lad, and it made me really like the guy and want to root for him as well. So, it's really good insight. And I tried to ask a lot of questions that your SENs and your mainstream medias and even the club won't ask. It's a bit more of a personal chat and asked him some important stuff. So that's coming up. Instagram, Further North podcast. Trying to do some more TikTok stuff, which is going quite well for me as well. So all those socials, get around it. But yeah, I mean, look, I'd say if you listen to hashtag, you probably listen to mine as well, and vice versa. So all the North Melbourne outlets, we're all pumping right now. The North Melbourne community is growing very, very big.
No, we've got a few out at the moment. In Clarko We Trust, Further North, like yourself, North Pod, Shibboner's podcast. Marnie's doing some great work with Kanga TV as well. So we're certainly spreading the message out, and hopefully we're growing some supporter base. So, because we are a small club, but we're very prestigious in a lot of other ways. And make sure to subscribe to Josh's work as well. It's a lot easier. You can it comes up on your podcast feed straight away. YouTube as well. Subscribe to that. You can see all his stuff that he does there. Anyways, Josh, it's been always a pleasure to catch up with you. We try and do this a couple of times a year now. So it's always an enjoyable chat. Thanks so much for coming on, and I'm sure we'll catch up at the end of the year, hopefully with 6.5, 7.5 wins.
That's right. Tom Powell for the best and fairest. That's my favourite player ever. Coleman Jones will make his season debut very soon, and we're not losing a game for the rest of the year. So tick that off, and thank you for having me, Dean. That's the optimism this podcast needs.
Sounds good. No, thank you very much, Josh. I really appreciate it. Hopefully we can get the other boys on fairly soon as well. Bailey is on his deathbed with Josh Goda, and Jason is he's a bit all over the shop.
He's taking CCJ's room in the hospital ward right now, so one in and one out at the moment.
Yeah, pretty much. Torn Achilles or something like that. So getting out of bed. So, that happens. And Jason's obviously a bit all over the shop with his newborn baby, and his schedule's a bit all over the place. But thanks so much, Josh. I really appreciate it. Thanks so much to all you local listeners. Like, subscribe to my work, Josh's work, all the other people's work. I'll be back, I think, Wednesday. I might be getting your one of your co-hosts, Marnie Cohen, on Wednesday.
Lovely.
So hopefully she can make it. She's doing some great work at Kanga TV. Until then, bye for now, and go Roos.